So I've been getting a steady bunch of comments about what layered armor I'm using. And considering that we've been able to get layered weapons thanks to the second title update, I thought it might be fun to show off what armors that I use. But this can't be a Goebbels Lantern video if we don't also go exploring all there is to know about making cool looking layered armor while I show stuff off. But first, it's plug time. I've made a Twitter account, so if you want to see all of my hot takes and my terrible opinions, go check that out. Link in description. Send me some cool layered armor, I'd love to see it. So, layered armor sets. The reality with fashion is that it's all subjective, and if someone says that your outfit is weak, what they really mean is that they don't like it. And at that point, it's just a game of opinions. But there are a few rules or a few nifty tips and tricks that can really help push your fashion game. And talking about these tips and tricks is a great way to increase your ability to make your layered sets pop and look really stylish. First up, let's talk about color theory. This is a huge topic in and of itself. So this is going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, as this kind of thing could make up for an 8-hour lecture and still only be skimming the surface of what it's really about. So instead, we're going to do the short version of color theory. So firstly, all colors are a combination of the 3 primary colors. And these colors combine into secondary colors and then tertiary colors and so on. And if you organize those colors next to the colors that they are composites of, you'd end up with a circle that looks a little bit like this. This is the color wheel, and we actually have this in game. You know the long strip of color that we have to change armor pigment? That's actually a color wheel that has been cut and then straightened out. The wheel, or strip, is really helpful at getting colors to look good together. And to understand how it helps us, we want to talk about color harmony. Color harmony is pretty simple, as it does what it says on the tin. You take colors and you get them to harmonize. There are loads of ways to form harmonies with colors on your armor, but to keep it brief, the basic forms of color harmony are complementary, where you take opposing colors to help give them contrast and make them pop. We've also got a similar alternative called split complementary. This is very similar to complementary, but now you've got your main base color and you've got 2 complementary colors that are equidistant from the base color's true complementary color. Think of it as getting a capital Y and plonking it down onto the color wheel. This pairs pretty well with using different quantities of the colors. Normally, the base color will be your main color, and the complementary colors to that will be your secondary and accent colors. And it works very, very well within the system that we're working in, as most armors tend to have a main color, an accent color, and then an uncolorable part to them. If we stretch the prongs of the Y so that they are an equal distance from both the other prongs, then you'll end up with a triadic color harmony. And this is great if you want to balance your colors, but you also want a wider color scheme overall. There are a ton of other color harmonies, like tetradic, square, double complementary, but as they require 4 main colors, this can be quite difficult to cohesively fit onto an armor set, but it can be possible. The 2 remaining ones, however, will be very useful. Firstly, we have an analogous harmony. This is taking colors that are next to each other on the wheel and blending them together to smooth over the edges and give your set a calmer look. Then we have monochromatic harmony. This is a difficult one to do in practice, as you're prone to unintentionally looking like a Power Ranger if you can't balance the shades right. But effectively using just one color and having multiple different shades of it can bring out some really interesting effects and looks for armor sets. However, it's worth remembering that we're not drawing on canvas or painting Warhammer here. Monster Hunter armor already comes pre-colored, and the amount that we can actually change varies quite a lot. This can be a blessing and a curse, because on one hand, we don't get completely paralyzed by the amount of choices that we can make, and it also sort of makes a fun puzzle out of finding armor pieces that work well together. But on the flip side, you will have to compromise here and there, and you can't customize how you look right down to a T. The final thing that you want to think about with color is that color has context. Color context is another topic that is as equally large as color harmonies, but to save this video from being too long, you can make colors look different by placing them next to other colors. By placing the right colors next to each other, you can increase or decrease the apparent lightness of the color. You can change the contrast of the colors and even change the intensity of the color. This is useful for us because it lets us alter the apparent look of the colors that are uncolorable. So if there are parts of the armor that you want to bring out, or parts of the armor that you want to hide or diminish, using color is a cheeky method to changing the feeling and the shape of the armor. Speaking of shape, this is the other half of making dope looking armor sets. The armor parts all come in different shapes and sizes, and with different extra bits and bobs attached to them. So matching them to give you the look that you want is important. Shape is one of those things that you can use to change the feelings that you convey with your armor. So if you want to look strong and sturdy, going for thicker armor parts or armor parts that makes your character more square shaped is gonna help give off that feeling. Alternatively, if you want to look swift and nimble, choosing thinner armor parts that don't have jutty outy bits, and ideally making your silhouette look more rectangular will better suit your design. This works in all manner of different ways. If you want to look more intimidating, then wear a full-bodied helmet. If you want to look more heroic, wear a civvy hat. You could also pair this pretty well with the weapon that you're using. After all, if you're using something big and bulky, like the Roaring Wyvern Lance, it makes sense that the person carrying it should also be big and bulky. It's also worth mentioning that we have the option to straight up hide different armor parts. So if you can't get them to work out, then you can just hide them. Problem solved. Oh, and on a similar vein, don't forget that you can change your character's face. You can use face tattoos, stuff like that. Customize it. It'll give you different looks and different feelings just by changing the face. Another thing that you can do is to use color to exacerbate or diminish certain parts of the armor to give different perceptions of its shape. The simplest example is using black to slim and hide parts of your character, and using white to make it feel fuller and to draw attention to parts that you want to highlight. And this works generally with brightness as a whole. So if you want one part of your armor to be the focus of the whole armor set, making that piece slightly brighter will work wonders. And in a similar vein, the quantities of color are also important. You don't want to drown yourself in color by having too much and having it all over the place. So choosing which colors are getting which quantities is important, especially as our actual ability to choose is quite limited in Monster Hunter. Moving on to the other side of the video, we'll stop talking about art theory and start talking about the stuff that you can do that is specifically related to Monster Hunter. The first one is making sure that your armor doesn't clip. It's pretty obvious, but having the back of your helmet phasing through your collar is pretty silly. You also don't want the inverse. There are quite a few armor pieces that will annoyingly float above the rest of your armor. On the whole, it's kind of minor, especially as you normally can't see the floatiness from the back, which is how you're going to be seeing your character for the most of the time. But it's worth keeping it in mind. Another big thing that is worth thinking about is making sure that your armor doesn't clip with the world. You can really whack up the brightness on your armor, and it could look nice on its own, but if it makes your character look out of place within the rest of the world, it's always going to look silly. So matching your armor, not only to itself, but to the rest of the world is pretty vital, as it doesn't matter how good your armor set looks if it sticks out like a sore thumb in the environment. It's like making a really nice painting and then sticking it in a frame that doesn't fit the painting at all. Okay, so we're a bit strapped for time here, but I'd like to still have a dedicated section to show off the armor that I actually use in the game. So let's take a short look at them and see if we can glean any tips from how they are. So firstly, one thing that I didn't realize before making this video is that I have a tendency to make black and red armor color schemes. And you can see that a lot in the first couple of armor sets that we have here. The pirate set is an interesting one, as it's a good example of armor shape. I used the gala suit legs to slim down and make the bottom half of the armor more minimal. Firstly, this helps with making the character imposing by giving it more weight at the top of the body, but it also helps center the eye to the upper half of the torso, where all the cool stuff is. I've done a similar thing with the new Event Quest steampunk outfit. The steampunk legs were cool, but I found that they made the whole armor set a little bit too cluttered and confusing to look at. So I swapped them out for the minimal gala suit legs, and it helps focus attention to the funky steampunk arm. This is also a good example of how hiding faces in helmets can give you a more intimidating look, because we've got this version with the Steve helmet, and then if we take the helmet off and swap it for something else, the character doesn't look quite as imposing. If we go back and have a look at the other red and black armors that I've made, we've also got the Guild Palace armor set. I really like this armor set, but after playing around with all this color theory, I'm not sure if I can use it with this same black and red color scheme in good faith. So during the process of making this video, I used the tips and tricks that were around, and I came up with these two newer versions of the armor set. And I think they're both much better than the original, especially when we use analogous colors or an analogous color harmony to match the gold with red and orange to make this second set. On the second page are armor sets made of monster bits. The Asterism Lance variation is an attempt to match the Guild Palace armor with the Lucent Nagakuga Lance. And Capcom clearly know what they're doing, because copying the little streaks of orange on that lance is actually using a complementary color scheme before I'd even, thought about it. And it also makes the Guild Palace armor look better, even when you're not using the lance. I think it's better than the other blue lance, blue Guild Palace armor set that I've already shown off. After that, we've got the armor that I've already shown off in this video. The Raging Wyvern set is fun because it's so bulky that it makes the Raging Wyvern lance look sort of normal while you're holding it. If you equip the lance with a more slender armor set, you can really see how ridiculously massive the weapon is. I've also got a load of mess on later pages. These are all armor sets that haven't quite made the cut yet, or they've got things that I want to tweak about them. There are a lot of armor here that I've specifically made to show off certain parts of color theory, so we can ignore them. But one thing I did stumble across while making sets for this video were the silly boar outfits. Obviously the first one was made as a joke, but the joke was supposed to have an improved version, and the improved version has grown on me quite a lot. The grey and the red is a really nice color combination. So that's about it for the armor sets that I have, so let's move on. Finally, after all this advice and theory to help you level up your armor game, it's important to remember that you don't need to follow all the rules all the time. Ignoring the fact that it's really difficult to make an armor set while following every single tip and trick all at once, it's also not necessary to do so, especially if you don't want to. If you want to look like a Power Ranger, go for it. And if you want to find the perfect combination of armor to cause maximum clipping, then go for it. There is no right or wrong answer here. I want you to take what you've watched today and just have fun making cool layered armor. Either way, I'd love to see what you guys come up with. I've recently started a Twitter account, and I'd love to see what armor you're all running around with. So tweet me some pictures and I'll share my favorites in a video or something. And that's the end. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did like it, giving the like button a press seems like a pretty smart thing to do. If you like my content and you want to see more, I've got a load of other videos that you could check out already. And if you've already seen them, then you could subscribe and click the bell icon. That way you'll be notified when I post new videos. And finally, I want to thank you for watching them. See you next time.